Hello, Hosanna.
Thanks for sitting down to have this chat today.
I love sitting down and chatting with you.
Oh. So today, this week, we're talking all about vocabulary. So could you start us off by explaining what is vocabulary?
Well, essentially your vocabulary is just the repository of words that you know and understand. And some of those words in your core vocabulary are really, really well known and you don't have to think too much about them. But we have other words that we're constantly learning and we're refining what they mean. And they're sort of on the periphery a little bit. They're a bit harder for us to access because we don't have a really strong idea of what they mean. Like we kind of get the gist of the word, but it's hard for us to define it.
Yeah, okay. So it's something that we're using all the time.
Of course, yes.
So why is it important? I mean, it sounds pretty important, but can you explain to us the technical reason for why it is so important?
Okay, well, I guess on a basic level, we need words to communicate. So
Yes.
I need to be able to express myself to you. So I'm using words. When you're speaking to me, I need to understand what you're saying. So I need to be able to take those words that I'm hearing and work out very quickly what they mean. When I'm reading and I'm looking at the words, I need to be able to access my vocabulary quickly so I can work out what the text is saying as well. And same for writing. If I'm writing something, I've got to know the words that I'm writing. So really, we can't get by without words.
Yeah, no, that's very true. So how is it that we can be encouraging our kids to grow up and into a very strong vocabulary?
So we use the term robust vocabulary. So everyone has a vocabulary because we all have words. Whether you can speak or not speak, you understand words. Like even, if you think about your pet dog understands a few words. So they've got a limited vocabulary.
That's true.
So what we're talking about really is a robust vocabulary. So that means a vocabulary that you can access quickly, that you know how to learn words and store them in your vocabulary very efficiently, and you're moving between understanding and speaking quite fluidly. And it's really important that our kids have a strong, robust vocabulary before they go to school. There's something that researchers call the word gap. And so when you might have two children starting school at the same time, same age, one comes from a background where they haven't had a lot of rich word learning experiences for whatever reason, and one comes from a background where they know a lot of words. Even though they're starting school at the same point, there is a very quick discrepancy that grows between those children in their learning and their academic performance. It's not that those with a less robust vocabulary can't catch up. It's just in those very early years, you do see quite a marked difference.
Okay, so some kids will start off a bit behind with a less robust vocabulary, but then they might catch up later.
Yeah.
So why is it so important to start with the robust vocabulary? Why can't you just catch up later? Like, why is it so important to have that strong start?
Yeah, well, obviously the stronger start that you get in your school career, the better. Well, there's a number of reasons. So one is, like we mentioned before, words are the foundation of reading and writing. So if you know a lot of words, you're going to be able to quickly learn more and absorb more information into your critical thinking skills. It's going to help you with that early reading comprehension. So when you read a word, you're going to automatically know what it means. Therefore, you'll pull out the meaning and pull that together quite quickly. Yeah, I guess it's also really important because the broader your vocabulary, the greater your sort of verbal self-expression skills are. You can ask questions, you can express ideas, you can talk about things that have happened to you, you can explain a little bit more, and that then naturally engages you and connects you more with others. So you're having conversations with more adults, but you're connecting in with your peers a little more readily, which is good.
Yeah.
And I guess it just gives you the confidence. Like if your child goes to school knowing a whole set of words that are related to school, so for example, if your child knows words like observe and more than, less than, those kind of words, those concepts are really important when it comes to mathematical knowledge. If they already have a concept of what those words mean, when they hear them in the classroom, they're right there, they're on point. They're not having to think back and go, I might have heard that, I'm not really sure what it means, and use that mental energy to try and pull a meaning together. they're right there in their moment, so they stay on topic.
Yeah, because if they're understanding the questions, then they're able to answer them and they're not wasting time just trying to understand what the question even is.
Yeah, and like if the teacher says, come on, we're going to do an experiment, but they know what the word experiment means, they're like, oh, yep, I know what we're doing. A child that might not be so familiar with that might be thinking, oh, maybe I've seen one of those. I might have heard that. Did I watch something about that on YouTube? I'm not really sure. And meanwhile, the teacher's already explaining what the experiment is going to be, and the child that's still struggling with that word or that concept is still not quite there with the teacher yet.
Yes. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I guess the other main reason that this robust vocabulary is important is because it ties in with our thinking skills. So I know we've mentioned before that when we're thinking and we're thinking to ourselves, we're using language and we're thinking a lot in words. Now, we do think in pictures and feelings and other things as well, but primarily most of us use words as the foundation of our thinking. So if we have a vocabulary that's got words like predict and analyze and consider, if we know what those things are, that's going to connect us more deeply with the content, because we're right there and we're starting to engage our vocabulary of thinking.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. We definitely spend a lot of time thinking in words, and I don't think that's something that I've even reflected much on, but it's very true. It translates to speaking both externally and internally to yourself.
Yeah. If you're ever unsure, I guess, of the importance of vocabulary, just think about learning another language. Like if you go to a new country and you can't speak the language, you are quite lost. Yes. There are lots of clues that you get. You can watch what people are doing. You can listen to their tone of voice. You can kind of follow along when you see other people doing things. But unless you have the words to really explain or ask the questions, then you're kind of feeling like you're really not fully present and you don't really know what's happening.
Yeah. No, that paints a really good picture, I think, of feeling a little bit lost, a little bit out of touch, disconnected. Yeah. So what's something that we can be doing to make sure our kids get the best start possible to have that robust vocabulary going into school?
Yeah, okay. So we're going to talk about stories and reading.
Yeah.
Because that's where we have all these beautiful words laid out for us. So this applies to a child of any age and us as adults as well, I guess. So we're doing a lot of reading before kids get to school, but once they're at school, still doing lots of reading with them is going to help continue to grow that vocabulary. So there's a couple of things that we're really looking for. So we can break our vocabulary into 3 levels or 3 tiers. So not all words have equal value, so to speak. So we have our level 1 words or tier 1 words, and these are words that kids learn very early. And they're usually words of things that you can show them pictures of. So they're things like, lounge, arm, sitting, running, those sorts of things. They're words that they experience all the time, and it's a very common part of their life.
Yes.
Yeah, first words. Okay. Then at the top we have our tier 3 words, and these are words that are very related to a particular subject. So they're words that you don't hear all the time unless you're talking about a particular topic.
Okay.
So they might include a lot of words sort of around science topics, like all the dinosaur names, for example, paleontologist, big words, but lots of little kids know the big words because they've got an interest in that topic.
Yes.
But in my everyday conversation, I'm not using those kinds of words. But what we have in the middle then is this huge chunk of what we call the tier 2 words. So these are the words that we're using a lot in our adult conversations. They're words that it's very hard to show a picture of. They're words that we seem to kind of just know, but they're definitely the words that are appearing in children's books, even from a very, very early age.
Yeah, okay. So what would be an example of some of those tier 2 words?
Yeah, okay. So I'll give you an example that just happened to me yesterday, actually. So what we want to do when we find these tier 2 words in the book, we actually want to stop and explain to our children what they actually are. So there's a few teaching moments that we have. So for example, yesterday I was reading a book with a little chap and we came across the word wary. There was a character who was wary of something that was about to happen. So in that moment, don't make the assumption that your child knows what that means. They might hear the word and be able to infer meaning from the context of the book, but it's always really good to do what we call explicit instruction. So we pause and we teach them the word in the moment.
Yeah,
now,
okay.
I'll tell you how I did it with this kid in a moment, but one of the important tips is don't actually ask them, do you know what that word means? So do that for a couple of reasons. One is you're interrupting the flow of the story. But secondly, if they have a vague idea or they don't know what the word means, their brain is already now off on a tangent. So with the word wary, they might think, oh, I've heard the word weasel. Is that something to do with that? It sounds a bit the same. I'm not really sure. And you've lost them. You've lost that teaching moment.
Yes.
So stay in the moment with them. So that's the first tip. So come across the word wary. And the first thing you do is you give the child a definition in your own language.
Yeah.
We are not spouting off dictionary definitions because kids are going to get completely lost.
The Webster Dictionary defines.
I know. And I mean, how often do we get confused reading a word in the dictionary?
Yeah, yeah.
We want to know what the word means in the context that we've got. Yeah. So with the word wary, I said, oh, he was a really bit unsure. He was a bit nervous about what was going to happen. He was really wary. So the first thing is you explain the word in a way that the child will actually understand.
Okay.
Then to deepen that connection, you can actually say, give them an example of something that they might relate to. So I said to this little chap, yeah, he was a bit nervous, he was a bit unsure what was going to happen. He was feeling wary. Like you felt wary when you were starting your new school and you weren't sure what it was going to be like. And you walked in the door and you were a bit wary, wondering what was going to happen. Yeah, so you give him the context of something that he can relate to.
Yeah, make it personal.
Make it personal. And then you go back to the book again and go... reread the sentence about it being wary, the character being wary. Then at the end of the story, what I do is I go back and I go, well, let's talk about those words that we were talking about. I remember we said we were talking about this word wary. Then I actually ask the child to say the word so that they have build what we call a motor plan for the word and a phonological representation for it. So they're starting to deepen their word learning. It's not just a word that they've heard, it's now a word that they've said.
Yes, okay. So that would probably help with the memorization of it as well. Like with someone's name when you first meet them.
Yes, the more you say it and think about it, And then get them to say, is there another time you can think of that you felt wary, or can you think of someone else who might have been wary in this book, and put it together like that.
Yeah, there's some really good tips, and that's a whole, I guess, process that you can go through just in reading stories together.
Exactly.
Yeah. When it comes to older kids and maybe they're doing a bit more independent reading, are there tips you can recommend for helping to encourage them to grow in their vocab? You might not be sitting, reading a book together, but they're maybe off doing their own thing or are a bit more independent. What would you recommend for that sort of age group?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You can assume that your kids actually really understand the text that they're reading. You can talk to them about it and you think they've got it. But when you really ask them to explain a paragraph to you, or what I like to do is I like to say, when I talk about reading comprehension in terms of building a mental picture, so if they're reading something, I go, oh, what's the picture you've got in your mind? What's happening? What can you see? Where are the characters? What are they doing? What does it look like? And that's one way of very quickly determining whether they've got all the key information. And it'll also often pinpoint times where they've misunderstood what a word means, or they've missed a key concept because they've just read over it quickly. So it's really good to check in with your kids and talk to them about what they're reading.
Yeah, okay. I guess in that example, you'd maybe have to have an understanding of the story yourself, maybe, to know if they're getting it right, perhaps?
Not a deep knowledge of the story. You might just have read a couple of paragraphs.
Yeah, okay. Or, like if they're reading through Harry Potter or something, for example. You've maybe read it or are familiar with the story.
That's right. But even if you haven't, you can actually just read along with them and read a paragraph.
Okay.
And just kind of check in with them. But I guess the other thing to do is just really be talking about words a lot and really encouraging kids to keep becoming inquisitive about words. So if they're not sure of what a word means, get them to write it down, or and then you can work through that same word learning process that we just talked about with the word wary, but you're doing it with the words that these kids, your older kids, are learning.
Okay, so you sort of encourage them to be a bit more self-led in like identifying, oh, I'm actually not quite sure about that word. I'm going to write it down.
A lot of times they make assumptions about words because they might sound similar or look similar to something else. Often, that can be a great strategy, and that is a strategy that we use to teach kids in reading comprehension, but they really have to kind of work out specifically what that word is. Yeah. But the other thing is, when you are having conversations with your kids, be using these words. So for example, something I like to do with lots of the kids that I work with, I might say, I'm really proud of you today because I love the way you persevered. And I go, persevered just means that you tried and kept going even though it was really tricky. I love the way you persevered. You got really great perseverance. And so because I
It's already 3 uses of the word.
Exactly, and I've given it in a different form as well. So because I do that very regularly with these kids, I can say, what am I proud of you today for? And they can go, because I persevered. And they go, oh, remember, what was it that you persevered at? It was tricky when I tried to do this, but now I can, you know. So you're starting to bring these words into your everyday conversation. And it's kids can pick it up quite quickly.
Yeah, great. So that's something for sort of the younger kids, something for the older kids. Do you have any other general tips that you want to leave with us for building up really strong vocab?
Yeah, I think probably another one would be mindful of things that you're going to be doing, or movies that you might be watching, or things that you're going to be talking about, and actually pre-teach the word. So I often talk to teachers about pre-teaching vocabulary before they start a topic. So it just gives those kids who might not have all the vocabulary a chance to learn it before they hear it in the context that they're going to need to use it.
Okay, so maybe like before they go on an excursion, maybe bringing up some words that could come up in the excursion.
Yeah, or be talking about some descriptive words. Ways of describing and explaining things, talking about things that you've done when you're going home in the car, just adding in all of that descriptive language and defining those words.
I suppose that's where it comes back to modelling, which we talk about a lot, and the importance of modelling. And so if you're encouraging yourself to use really good, strong vocab, that's also going to reflect in the kids that you're around as well.
Yep. I know that as adults we're always learning new words. You know, if we're reading, we're constantly learning. So it can be helpful to keep maybe like a little bit of a word wall or something at home, which is often fun. So when...
Okay, what's that?
Oh, so you can have somewhere where you actually store all these new words that you learn.
Yeah.
So you might like to get some, that glass chalk. You know, the chalk pens that you can use for writing on glass?
On glass, yeah.
Yep, you could have it on your glass door where you go, oh, that's a new word we've just learnt. Let's go and write it down on our word wall.
Yes.
And so they're seeing it. And again, that's going to enhance the word learning because they're then connecting visually with what the word looks like. So even with very small children, you can actually write the words down so they can see it because they'll start to work out whether it's a long word or a short word. They'll start to recognise some patterns in the letters and maybe relate it to some other words that they know.
Okay, so keeping that visual record for a period of time.
Yep, it could be just a collection of words on a whiteboard. It could be written on the glass. It could be just a big piece of paper that you put, in the passageway or something.
Yeah.
And the kids can be really excited and go, oh, I've just learned this new word and I'm going to write it down. And you help them write it or you show them what it looks like.
Probably make them feel quite smart, I imagine, looking back and be like, look at all these big words I know.
Yeah, and I guess as adults, put our words down there too so that our kids see that we are constantly learning new words. And
it's a lifelong thing.
It is, and then just making sure you're using those words.
Yeah.
Keep using them in conversation.
Yeah.
You can come back to the word like perseverance and come back and say, oh, can you give me another example of a time where you've seen someone persevere? Or when you're at home, you can say, oh, I worked really hard to, unscrew the lid off this jar, but I persevered and I just got it done, Try and make them as normal as possible. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, as a speech pathologist, you are working with words all the time. Do you still come across words that you're not familiar with?
Yes, constantly,
Yeah? Can you remember one maybe in the last few months or anything that comes to mind?
Let's see, now as I was talking about the word wall, I was thinking I need to be writing down some of my own words.
Yeah.
I think I do a lot of reading like on an e-reader or online, and the beautiful thing is that if you're using a digital device for reading, you can actually press on highlight the word and it'll pop up and say look up word.
Yes.
So you can go very quickly. Obviously that's
a good feature.
It's a great feature. Obviously that's going to a dictionary definition, which is not always the most helpful, but it's enough for you to go, oh yeah, I've got it. I know what that means now in this context.
Yeah.
But because I haven't taken the next step and necessarily said it out loud or written it down or used it again, I can't always bring those to mind straight away.
There you go.
So they're sort of swimming around in the periphery of my vocabulary. They're not well anchored down yet.
Okay, well maybe we need to start our own word wall.
I think we do.
At the clinic.
Yes, we do.
For the clinicians.
Yes.
I know we were doing a word of the week for a while where we were sort of learning new words. There's that screensaver that you can get as well on your computer.
Yes, that's my screensaver.
I do remember that for a few years. Do you still have that going?
Yes, in one of the computers in the office.
Yeah.
We keep that one going.
It's a dictionary definition. It'll have the word that comes up in the definition, but it does give you some interesting ones. It's food for thought.
Yeah, but you've got to use it. So like you think about it being multisensory, you've got to say it, you've got to see it, you've got to hear it, you've got to use it in a sentence, you've got to relate it to a situation that you are familiar with, you've got to apply it to a new situation, check out if it fits in that environment. And if you've got all of that kind of practice, you might be relating to other words that you know mean the same thing, or words that sound the same or look the same. And if you can put all of those connections together, then you'll have learnt the word.
Yeah, that's great. So that's something that we can be applying, I guess, as adults in our own life.
Yeah.
The next time we do the crossword or read something interesting, making a note of that and then making an effort to use it, to say it aloud and keep track of that.
Yeah, we should keep our vocabularies growing.
Well, that's some really interesting food for thought. You could also say it's very intriguing, very engaging.
Yes, I love what you're doing there.
Yeah.
That's a fabulous strategy. So thinking about synonyms, so words that mean the same, try and play with them, interchange them, see if it changes the meaning or if it stays the same. And also thinking of antonyms, so that's the opposites. The more you can think about the word, the stronger your word learning. The stronger the words held in your vocabulary, the more likely you are to use it again and grow your vocabulary.
Yes, I just think of writing essays in high school and having the thesaurus up and using that to find all the synonyms for the words so that I could sound like I had better vocabulary or to encourage me to use better vocabulary, maybe prompt me to think of a slightly higher letter count word I can use. Yeah. Well, thanks for having this chat today, Mum, about vocabulary and the importance of it. It's given us all a lot to reflect on, which is great. And I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to challenge myself to keep a little word diary, a little chart somewhere, maybe on the fridge or something, or on a whiteboard where I write down all the new words that I'm learning. Yeah.
Great. I can't wait to find out what you can teach me.
Okay, well, I'll report back.
Great.
So if you're looking for some more tips on vocabulary and how to build it through the art of storytelling, over on the blog we have a post on this, how to use storytelling to build vocab. And we'll be posting some more content around this during the week on our socials, so watch out for that. Thanks for having this talk today, Mum. I've enjoyed it, and we hope you have a great week.